A transformação digital já está entre nós. O home office já é uma alternativa muito mais tangível para vários setores. O e-commerce cresce e se expande. As transações financeiras por aplicativos nos oferecem mais comodidade, mais segurança. O mundo está conectado, nós estamos conectados. E a potência de nossas conexões transforma a realidade. A transformação digital é, sobretudo, uma transformação cultural. A sustentabilidade é, sem dúvida alguma, o tema mais importante dos nossos tempos. E empresas inteligentes participam ativamente dessas mudanças. Seja reorientando transformações e pesquisas tecnológicas ou apoiando a sociedade com equipamentos e conhecimento. É importante manter a inovação como motor propulsor para avançar sempre. Empresas inteligentes conectadas à transformação cultural que vivemos desenvolvem atuações integradas às complexidades do presente. Para falar sobre como essas transformações acontecem na prática, eu quero convidar a board member da SAP, a executiva global de Customer Success, Adaire Fox-Martin, e Nicolás Simone, diretor executivo de transformação digital e inovação da Petrobras.
Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to SAP Now in Brazil. Unfortunately, we're not able to do this event in person, but we are focused on bringing you a wonderful experience virtually. SAP has been in Brazil for almost 26 years now, and during that period of time, we've had an opportunity to work so closely with so many key customers across the Brazilian business landscape. And we are very grateful and very humbled for the trust that you have placed in us over those years. And we need to continue to evolve our engagement with you to ensure that at all times we are doing our utmost to ensure your success. In February of this year, we launched a new board area in SAP called Customer Success. And this board area represents one of our largest internal transformations. For the first time in our history, we are bringing together all of our sales professionals, all of our services professionals, and all of our customer-facing professionals into the Customer Success board area. Being in a single board area gives us the opportunity to orchestrate the totality of SAP's experienced, dynamic, and passionate employees around your experience and your value with SAP. We are very much taking an outside-in view and look forward to receiving your feedback as we embark on this incredible transformation journey within SAP that has, at its very heart, the improvement of our relationship with you and of the business outcomes that we drive on your behalf. Now, today, I am honored to be joined by a speaker who represents one of the largest companies in Brazil. All of us know the importance of energy and the dynamic role that it plays in our daily lives. Petrobras is a leading company in the oil and gas segment and has been a long-term customer of SAP for many years. Petrobras is one of the innovative leaders in the oil and gas segment. And today I'm delighted to be joined, and I want to make sure I get job title right here, by Nicolás Simone, the Executive Director for Digital Transformation and Innovation at Petrobras. Nicolás, a very warm welcome to SAP Now here in Brazil.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Now, Nicolás, let's start off, first of all, about the technology role, because when we think about the role of technology and the challenges of growth in Petrobras, I think there are some important topics perhaps within the challenges and the opportunity that you're facing today. The first must be connectivity. I can just imagine the range of assets that you need to connect and manage. Then there's the technology platform. You know, how do you take all of that data and actually turn it into something that's going to be a valuable insight to the business? And then, of course, underpinning that is a cultural transformation, the whole going digital scenario that I know that you're driving, given your job title, right, in Petrobras. Very welcome to, I'm very open for your perspective on some of those topics, Nicholas, to get us started here today.
Okay, Adaire, thank you very much for the invitation. It's really an honor to participate here in this event. When we speak about digital transformation and innovation in Petrobras, our strategy is working in two dimensions. That one is the go digital part, and the other dimension is to be digital. When you speak about technology platforms or connectivity, is the go digital dimension. What we are rethinking and rebuilding is all our technology platforms in order to run in this digital transformation. Of course, we have a lot of legacy in place, but legacy cannot be a white cell to do innovation, to do the digital transformation that we need. And of course, when we think in the be digital part, is the cultural transformation part, is new way of thinking, is new way of working, like agile methodology, design thinking, and of course, working the digital transformation through the people. And when we work in these two dimensions, what we want to become is like the concept of exponential organization. When we think in a native digital company, we think that the employees has huge maturity in the be digital dimension, but of course they need to work in the go digital. In our side, we have the Ferraris of the technologies. SAP is one of that one. But also we need to work in the be digital part in this huge cultural transformation that we need to do in Petrobras. We have a great technical and professional people. We have great technologies in place, but what we need is to plug in the be digital dimension to balance the equation when we think in digital transformation and innovation. And speaking about connectivity, for us is crucial. No? And we have our layout. We have different type of connection that we need to have, for example, for refineries, platforms, and also our corporate environment. But what we are doing is innovating also in that one, testing 5G, testing LTE. There is a technology with a connectivity technology that allowed us to be more connected in this bimodal thing. For one side, we need to do the basic well done. That means, like I say, like an example, we cannot have Netflix if we don't have internet. We need to build the connectivity in order to use the full potential of our platforms, technology platforms that we have in Petrobras. And for us, it's crucial. We have platforms from 300 kilometers over the coast. We have refineries. We have corporate buildings, and all need to be connected in a high-performance network in order to add value to the company with the technology platforms that we have or we are putting in place.
I really loved the be and the go, and what is in some ways a very subtle difference just from a semantics perspective on those two words, but yes. In reality, the transformation that's in the middle of those two is hugely crucial. And as Petrobras is almost rediscovering how it can transform itself and even transform its product, how has the pandemic that we're all navigating now in its various forms and in our various walks of life, whether that's personal, professional, how has that really helped to accelerate either transformation, or what has it meant that you've had to consider or navigate to during this period of time?
Great question. Thank you for this. Well, my directory was created in September of last year, and I arrived in Petrobras in October of 2019. And what we did in that period was accelerating and creating a strategy for digital transformation. And of course, with the tragic of the COVID-19, what we did was we accelerate what was in our pipeline of implementation. 25,000 people in home office in 1 week. We delivered 6,000 notebooks in 1 week. And of course, we use all our digital technology, our digital platforms to connect people to be safe in their homes in this quarantine period. And for us was a huge challenge of course, for all the companies was a huge challenge. But I say that we did 4 years in 4 months. Because when we think in the technology, we had the technology already in place because we implement the technology in the last trimester of 2019. But the implementation itself or the utilization by the user is something that you need to work. It's a change management perspective. The adoption is the key for the full utilization of the digital platforms. And when you implement a collaborative mode or a collaborative technologies in a company, takes sometimes 1 year, 1.5 years to do the full adoption of the technology. What we saw in Petrobras, that in 4 months or in 3 months, the full adoption was in place. The people that say that, I don't believe too much in home office, they start believing. The people that never use video conference because they didn't like it or was not the same, like speak, in person, they start to using. They even start using applications to deliver food, to deliver from the supermarket, and affecting the way that the people saw the technology, like not like an enemy or something, but like, okay, I need to use it because if not, I cannot move forward. And for us, I think the adoption was great. Like I say, we did it 4 years in 4 months. The adoption of the home office perspective was well. We make some analysis and we increase productivity. We increase employee satisfaction. What we saw that the home office, a new way of working, thinking out of the box, was a good movement for the company. And one thing that we announced the 31st of August, that the home office will remain after pandemic in Petrobras. This is a huge cultural change in the company. The reaction of the employees, the reaction of my colleagues was great. Say, finally we have this opportunity in Petrobras.
Wow. I mean, there's just an incredible story of agility there, right? I mean, first of all, you described the supply chain and the kind of distribution that you ran on the internal supply chain to ensure that everybody was physically, technically enabled to participate in the environment that was going to be the working environment, albeit from their kitchen table, right? And then to actually experience what I think a lot of companies around the world have experienced, how this set of circumstances can actually be an accelerator of change and really bring about that acceptance that technology is an enabler. And as you say,
yes. Adding to that one, I think we need to learn how to work in distance, in this digital mode. Because, for example, we are doing some migration from SAP because we are migrating for S4HANA, and the people was doing that one virtually with video conference in a new way of working. And the perception or the feedback that I received from my team doing this kind of migration in homes in the different places was great. And I think in the past, we never thought that we can do a migration of SAP or a module of SAP or whatever virtually, each one in their houses and all that one. And I think for us it's great. And also we need to learn how how to guide people, how to be a leader in this environment, in this digital environment, when you need to do a coaching or doing feedback or working in a day-by-day basis with the team, it's a different way of working. The leadership has to be trained, they have to learn how to work in this kind of environment. But one thing that we realize, we are more connected now with the people that we was before. Incredible.
That's incredible.
And for me, it's of course, taking out the sad situation of the COVID-19, I think we learn a lot and will remain after we pass through the pandemic.
And I think there are probably other elements that will remain, Nicholas. So maybe you could comment on, you commented on the internal changes at Petrobras, and many of which you'll carry forward because they're change for good. But I know that you're an incredible company on the Brazilian landscape, and that you also responded not just as an employer, but also as a significant member of the community, of the business community in Brazil. Maybe just share a little bit about, the initiatives that Petrobras undertook to help Brazilians during this time.
Yes, I think also the paper of the position of Petrobras, the role of Petrobras in Brazil is huge. How we work with the society, in Brazil. And what we did in the pandemic, we created what we call the scientific response group to guarantee solutions to help to focus in our, a common enemy that was the COVID. We created this scientific response group using technology, using our technicals, our capabilities. We deliver solutions to help us, to help the war to fight the COVID-19 and help us pass through the pandemic. For example, we open our high-performance computing. We open to the scientific community 3 petaflops with our high-performance computing. We start delivering and researching new ways to, for example, doing fever screening. We donate 20,000 of safety equipments in personal care products to a public hospital in Rio de Janeiro. We repair ventilators using by COVID-19 patients. Things like company, of course, we need to think in the business, but we need to think in the people. Is this great balance that we are thinking in our day-by-day operations. Yeah. And for us, I think was we are very happy because we contribute a lot with the society, with the Brazilian community, and also with the scientific world to accelerate solutions to help us to pass through the COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, so you can see, this combination of with the objective of helping all of mankind. And we can see that in so many times, so many different industries, so many different companies collaborating on what is a common enemy for us. And that, of course, is this.
I think the word that you say is very important. There is collaboration.
Yes.
How we collaborate together, different companies, maybe with different verticals, or maybe with this in the same business, how we work together to fight this common enemy. This move us in a way that affect us personally in a good sense, because we were helping the society, our friends, our colleagues, our family to work in all these different layers that I explained before.
Yeah. And let me just bring you back to the business, because, you mentioned, the S4HANA project that's underway, and how, the teams were working virtually and people thought that might not be possible. And yet, this was something that was achieved. And certainly during this period of time, we've seen a lot of go lives that have been virtual in right across the world in a whole variety of different industries, different geographies. I wanted to really just come to one of the main challenges that I know that you're trying to address with technology, and that is the gap, the business gap between the discovery of oil, right, and exploration, right? And you mentioned, I think I heard it was 2,500 days, right? And people want to shorten that down to 1,000 days, which still seems like a long time, particularly when we're thinking about, the acceleration element that we've just talked about. And it makes me think about, efficiency, but also efficiency with the mantra of sustainability associated with it when we consider, the role of technology, the role of Petrobras, and the kind of footprint and so on that we leave on our environments. Can you maybe tell me how you're working with SAP, share with the team here? Because I think that when I last looked at the database that you were operating at the data set, it was 66 years worth of information, and or I should say 66 years worth of data. And how do you take that and turn that into information for the business? And how to close some of those gaps?
Yeah, for us, it's tricky to say when we say data is the new oil, no? Because we are an oil company. But I think we have two strategic programs in Petrobras. One is what we call Prod 1000, is from the discovery to the first oil, doing in 1,000 days. Today, like you say, we are delivering 2,500 days or maybe 2,900 days. That I think is a challenge because we need to reduce in 1/3 the days that we are doing today. And for us, it's an alchemy of technologies that we need to put in place. It's a challenge of managing a huge project. We are saying that from the discovery to the first oil, we need to build a platform. We need to understand how we are going to work in that field, how many oil is there, where to do perforation, to not hire a dry well. And it's a lot of challenge. But I think what SAP is helping us is to put all this information, first of all, is transform data to information. That is easy to say, but it's very hard to do it. In a company, like you say, with 66 years of data, we have, this is a huge value for the company, all this data. And when we work with SAP platforms, and also connecting with another systems that we have, is to put all together and help us in this huge challenge. For example, about technology, an excellent example is the SAP MRS, module, which allows us to, allow you to optimize the allocation of proofs for the construction of wheels and different other things. I won't enter to a more technical details, but I think the challenge and the benefit that we have with SAP is to connect all the data, transform into information, connect with all other applications that we have in place to do this acceleration, from living from reactive to proactive and predictive, using also artificial intelligence technology. And I think it's a win-to-win for us partnership that we have with SAP. Of course, right now we have this huge project that is migrating for S/4HANA, but I think will help us also to move more faster in this strategic project that we have in place.
So there were a couple of things that you mentioned there around next generation that are here now. I think technologies, you mentioned artificial intelligence, and of course in the S4 environment, those algorithms are embedded in the core. As the leader of transformation, enabling transformation from a technology perspective with Petrobras, what are some of the emerging technologies that you think you'll be trying in the near, not so distant future?
Yes, what we are, of course, when we speak about artificial intelligence, digital twin, all that one, we already have. what we are working is with, for example, speaking about digital twin, we are implementing the digital twin in our refineries and platforms to be more efficient in the production field, in the refineries, of course. What is the optimized equation that we can use in our refinery, simulating that one in our digital twin part? Remember that just to put to the people in place, digital twin is a copy of our analogic refinery in a digital twin environment to allow us to do simulations in of course in a time to market that is extremely accelerate, but how also we change the variables and help us to be more efficient, to produce more products with less water, for example, to produce more product with less carbon emission, and be more efficient in a general way. And for us, all this alchemy of technology has to be, the focus is to add value to the company. For me, technology is a medium, is a way of adding value to different companies. Of course, also with machine learning models, we are helping also to work in cost reduction. We are putting other technologies in place, like collaboration technologies. We are building ecosystem for our employees to be more connected, because innovation or digital transformation also is allowed us through the people be connected and co-working together. And for one part, we are using digital twin, we are using artificial intelligence, of course, analytics, and a lot of digital technology platforms that we are putting. But in the other side, we need to connect our colleagues, our employees, to co-working, to be more collaborative inside of the company. Connecting also with the startups, connecting with a strategic partner like SAP in order to do innovation. And for me, what we live today in what I call the VUCA world. I imagine that you already heard that expression, that we are saying that the world it has volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And I think in this is not because the pandemic, but what we need is a vaccine for this VUCA world. And when I say vaccine, is velocity, agility. That agility is not the same as velocity, because agility is our capacity to adapt. We can be fast, but without agility, it will be impossible to adapt to the new ways of working, new normal movement of the market or whatever. In this vaccine mode, we have velocity, agility, creativity, I think is crucial, innovation, network, and experimentation. I think all these 6 dimensions are extremely important to be in our DNA, in our blood in the company. And for Petrobras, all these kind of concepts is what we call our Be Digital part also. How the honest fail is allowed in a company, in a huge corporation. The concept of fail fast, fail better, in our case also fail safe, because we have refineries, we have platforms, are very important to implement. And of course, it's a lot of technology that we are putting in place, but I think the challenge itself is to implement these 6 dimensions of the vaccine, the 6 dimensions that I explained before, with every colleague, every employee of the company, and also how the partners that we are working, they have the same, DNA like SAP has, to match together and run to add value to Petrobras.
All right. Well, Nicholas, first of all, I think we've come full circle almost, starting with, the to be digital discussion that we started this session on. And I wanted to thank you, first of all, for your time today, for sharing with us such insights around the acceleration of innovation in Petrobras, your wonderful vaccine analogy and how that applies to the cultural change that you're driving, and really for your comment on value. Understanding that everything that we do, whilst it may be driven by innovation, whilst it may be driven by technology, ultimately it needs to deliver value for the business. And SAP is very proud to be your partner in delivering value to Petrobras and to the citizens of Brazil. And we look forward to continuing that journey with you. Thanks for joining us today, Nicholas.
Okay, Adaire, thank you very much. And we are happy also to have SAP like a great partner for us.